and to engage in a lawsuit with Steve Bannon allows Steve Bannon to immediately subpoena Donald Trump as a witness, to subpoena Ivanka Trump as a witness, Jared Kushner as a witness for depositions, and all this sort of stuff for years on end.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. You know, I remember many years ago when Pat Robertson was running for the presidency, and he sued a couple of a sitting congressman and a former congressman for libel over his Vietnam War record. And that became a very painful process for him, because then everybody was able to depose him. He was deposed at length. Some unpleasant truths came out. And ultimately, he terminated that lawsuit, saying that it was inconsistent with continuing to run his campaign. That experience would be only magnified for President Trump, who would see everyone around him subpoenaed for depositions.
And Tim, the last time Donald Trump threatened a lawsuit, he was lying. He said he was going to sue all the women who accused him of sexual assault and sexual harassment during the campaign. He, of course, was lying about that and did not dare sue anyone.
And he also threatened the New York Times. I think one of the things to remember is that a threat of a lawsuit from Donald Trump usually doesn't amount to much more than a saber rattle, and he rarely follows through.
We're going to have to leave it there. Tim O'Brien and Joyce Vance, thank you both for sticking with us, and I really appreciate it.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.
We know from clips that we have now received, and we've received obtained a copy of this book that we are going through as we speak right now, that Steve Bannon refers to that meeting at Trump Tower in June of 2016 as having been not just treasonous, but unpatriotic, is the way he describes it, among other things. We're also looking through some of the quotes, this one specifically from page 255 of that book, Fire and Fury, Inside the Trump White House, where Steve Bannon discusses had been meeting with Russians at Trump Tower on a day that, according to our records, the president was at the White House. The meeting happened in the afternoon when we know the president had returned from a fundraiser. Steve Bannon, according to these excerpts, says simply that the chance that Don Jr. did not walk these Jumos, as he is quoted as saying, up to his father's office of the 26th floor is zero. In effect saying there is no way that the president was unaware that this meeting was taking place under his nose, in effect, in his building at Trump Tower on that day. You'll remember that the White House press secretary, Sarah Sanders, said that the president was only aware of that meeting earlier this summer. That's after we first learned the details of the president putting out that statement, or helping contribute to a statement that his son Don Jr. put out, saying that the meeting really focused on Russian adoption and not about anything further than that. So this is significant, and that it gives us yet another window into what is believable about what had happened back then. We have reached out not just to the president's attorneys today here at the White House and outside, but also to those representing some of the other members of the inner circle, including Jared Kushner, who is said to have been in that meeting on that day. When I'm done speaking to you, we'll reach out to Don Jr.'s attorney as well to see if they have any comment on this as well. Stephanie?
I'm still shaking my head at the word. I'm not even going to say it again. I can't even believe these words. Mark, I turn to you, though. Steve Bannon making these kind of accusations, whether or not they're true, what does this mean for the Robert and Rebecca Mercers of the massive supporters of President Trump? Is Steve Bannon not creating a war between himself and the White House?
Yeah, Stephanie, I do think that this could end up creating an entire rift inside the entire conservative movement, not just with the Mercers, but also with Breitbart, the news organization that has been saying that this has been a phony witch hunt from the beginning on this Russia investigation. And, you know, it really has been the conservative base, those kind of organs, that have really helped protect the president and his White House during this Russia investigation. We've seen the attacks going up against Robert Mueller, the special counsel. We've seen Capitol Hill really come to the president's aid when it comes to the Republican side. But all of a sudden, now is this rift, and the longer it goes on, if Steve Bannon doesn't knock down votes, I do think that you're going to end up having a conservative movement that is kind of frayed right now when it comes to the Russia investigation. And certainly, you know, again, the crux of all this is that everyone has been saying that there's there
that'll make the argument he's wanted to make all along, going after these White House globalists? Because what he's pointing to is money laundering. Money laundering that has to do with the Trump businesses, that has to do with the Kushners, with the Kushners tied to Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank is also tied to the Bank of Cyprus, as I mentioned earlier, to Wilbur Ross. These are all people who were not allies of Steve Bannon in the White House. Remember, Steve Bannon, he doesn't like that faction of the White House. And, you've got the Gary Cohns, the Wilbur Ross. Wilbur Ross was part of the campaign, but Gary Cohn wasn't. Steve Bannon could be successful here in saying, me, the nationalist faction of the White House, I'm true to who I was and I always was. But Jared Kushner cared about his business and his money, as did Don Jr. If Steve Bannon can create this line, and if he's correct, wouldn't it be a huge win for him?
I think as you're alluding to, Steve Bannon has always been more about the cause rather than the individual, that is President Trump. And, the cause is a populist type of White House, and the more that the policy that is coming from the White House isn't all that populist, it does seem that you could have the motivation for Steve Bannon to say, look, I'm against this right from the beginning. But let me go back to what Peter was talking about that June 9th, 2016 meeting at Trump Tower. Why that is so significant. We already know that you end up having a meeting with a Kremlin-connected lawyer. But Stephanie, we know now of multiple interactions that the Trump team ended up having with Russian intermediaries. Whether it was Don Jr. And his direct messages interactions abroad, there are now multiple points where the Trump campaign or campaign officials were interacting with Russians. And going back to the campaign that I've covered since 2004, normal presidential campaign isn't dealing or talking or interacting with a foreign government, particularly a foreign government that has an adversarial relationship with the United States.
Peter, if Steve Bannon seems to have this definitive information or lawyered up, speaking to Robert Mueller and his team, why would he be sharing
of those comments. That's the way that he viewed events as well. But just more details, obviously, right now that adding new layers to that meeting that took place now June of 2016, a year and a half ago, and obviously you're still making waves these months later.
All right, boys, I'm on TV, so I can't tell. Take me to Twitter. We know that the president has been en fuego in the last 24 hours. Since these quotes have come out, has the president or Don Jr., who's also a big fan of the Twitter, social media platform?
Not to my knowledge, Stephanie. Yeah, not to my knowledge. And yeah, yesterday, the president of the United States sent out 16 tweets. Today, he is silent. Throughout the day.
All right, we can send Delaney and join it. Quick, Peter, as you're continuously reading through these quotes, I've got to ask, is there a White House press briefing today? Will you have a chance to ask Sarah Huckabee Sanders any questions? Because until now, President Trump, I don't believe, has ever uttered a negative word about Steve Bannon.
Yeah, we haven't had a chance. Well, he has been critical of Steve Bannon before. Remember, he sort of dismissed him at one point. But generally, he's very complimentary of Steve Bannon. These two men, obviously, have a pretty similar worldview on a lot of the topics and speak regularly as it's described to us. There is a press briefing today, I believe, scheduled to happen at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock. Sanders. So we look forward to most of those. My colleague Chris upstairs. Reaction from the right now, but you know, that's what we know at this moment. Literally, as you're speaking right now, getting handed more and more excerpts as our team rifle through this.
Throughout the last hour, more excerpts of the book have come out.
Well, I've always believed that it's very likely that Donald Trump Sr. would have been doing that. We are going back to the Russian lawyer Natalia Veselnitskaya today. Steve Bannon that they took this group upstairs to see Donald Trump Sr. She has always represented to us that didn't happen, and we're going back to the transcripts to see exactly what she said about that. But that would be a really interesting development. In fact, these people met, obviously, Donald Trump Sr. after that Trump Tower.
Stunning. It has been stunning to see how conservative media responds to all of this. Until today, it has been, this is all an overblown hoax.
And what his relationship with Mr. Bannon is. April?
Sarah, when is the last time the president talked to Steve Bannon? And this is a serious question. Is the president now blocking Steve Bannon from calling his cell phone?
I'm not aware that he was calling his cell phone, but I believe the last conversation took place at the first part of December.
And what does this do to the base? That these two powerhouses are fighting in the Republican Party. What does this do to the president's base?
I don't think it does anything to the president's base. The base and the people that supported this president time again for years. And this is a president who's not going to cower down and is not going to be weak and is going to make sure that he does what he's promised to do, and that's stand up and protect the American people. Sorry, Peter, I'm going to keep moving.
But
John?
isn't it possible that he could miss
This is a president who is committed to protecting Americans and protecting the people of this country, and he's not going to back down. John?
It's a very harsh statement that the president put out today, and it's not the first time that Steve Bannon has been topic A here at the White House briefing. The last time, as you made reference to, is after his interview on 60 Minutes, and during that White House press briefing on September the 11th, when a series of questions were asked of you at the time, you were pretty much hands-off in terms of going after Steve Bannon. The president didn't respond in any particular way to the 60 Minutes interview. What's changed? What's changed between then and now after the interview that he apparently did with Michael Wolff for his book?
Look, once again, I think the president and his feelings toward Mr. Bannon are very clear in his statement, and there's really not much else to add beyond that. I don't think there's much gray area in what his feelings are. Francesca?
Thank you, Sarah. But to pick up on that, this is a pretty dramatic falling out between the president and someone who worked on his campaign and also worked in this White House very close to him every day. And so I think everyone was wondering what led to this quite dramatic falling out, and was it the loss of Roy Moore in that Senate race that was mentioned in the statement? You mentioned that they had last talked in early December. Is this a direct response to Steve Bannon calling the president's son unpatriotic and saying that he committed treason?
I think there are a number of factors that played in. I would certainly think that going after the president's son in an absolutely outrageous and unprecedented way is probably not the best way to curry favor with anybody. Ashley?
You mentioned the statement the president put out. It was very harsh, and it basically says the entire book is fiction. That said, a note explaining how the book came to be said that the authors conducted interviews for 18 months, including many with the president, spoke to over 200 people, many of the president's top aides and people.
He never actually sat down with the president, just to be very clear.
Two questions. Did they ever speak on
Since
the
the
phone?
president. There was one brief conversation that had nothing to do originally with the book. It was, I think, around 5 to 7 minutes in total since the president's taken office, and that's the only interaction that he's had. That's the only interaction that the president has had with Michael Wolff since he took office.
If you could reconcile the president's statement with the author's statement about how the book came to be.
I'm not sure what the author's statement is on how the book came to be. I know that the book is has a lot of things so far of what we've seen that are completely untrue. You have many people that have quotes that are sourced to them that are now coming out publicly and saying that those things are not true. And so I can't speak to what the author's comments were. I can only speak for the White House. Darlene?
Does the White House have a copy of the book now?
I believe there may be some individuals that do. Jim?
Sarah, the president's statement suggests that Steve Bannon had very little influence in the White House, but the president himself elevated him to the same level as the chief of staff and put him on the National Security Council. How do you reconcile that?
I wouldn't say that he elevated him to the same level of the chief of staff, and I think that in the actions that Steve took, the president was clear that it didn't have a lot of influence on him or the decision-making process throughout his time here at the White House. Margaret?
Can you clarify, because many of us here have seen Michael Wolff at the White House on multiple occasions. We've seen him firsthand. So we know he was here. Who gave him access to the White House? What was he here for? Can you explain any of that, since we don't have access to the logs?
Yeah, so far, from what I can tell of the roughly just over a dozen interactions that he had with officials at the White House, I think close to 95% were all done so at the request of Mr. Bannon.
So the compliance really, you would just say, came from Steve Bannon. Other White House officials were not working with him and helping to...
Any that did so far as we can tell, so at the request of Mr. Bannon. Deborah?
The president tweeted the cookie announcement of those dishonest and corrupting awards with the Monday Carter. Can we get some details on that? Where will he say it? Will it be televised? How many awards will he present? Will there be any other judges?
Oh my God.
Quite a few individuals that could be for those awards, and beyond that, I think we'll have to see what happens on Monday. We'll certainly keep you posted. It might be hard for him to present trophies if you guys aren't there, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what happens on Monday. Justin.
I have two policies. The first one is there's some controversy over the weekend about a letter from the Department of Transportation suggesting that the split federal state framework for the Gateway Protocol and connecting New York and New Jersey. Since it's a concern to me, I'm wondering if in principle supports at least a 50-50 split on that, and if not, what's changed from the bipartisan need for the leadership letter last year.
We don't have any new policy announcements at this point, but as we get further into the year, further into the discussions on infrastructure, we'll be rolling out more details on what we want to do, what we hope to accomplish, and what the plan is to do that.
And you got some questions yesterday about the sort of shorter list of demands on immigration. I'm wondering if that's something that Mick Mulvaney and Shore brought up to Capitol Hill today as part of those discussions.
It's possible that it comes up. We're certainly open to having conversations on that. The conversation today, the primary focus is on the budget. Once again, we'd like a clean budget bill, and so that's not what our focus is going into today's meeting, but our priorities on what we would hope to have in any immigration bill and any DACA deal haven't changed. They would include securing
Okay,
the
Hal,
border
that's
with
fucking
the wall,
enough.
ensuring interior enforcement, eliminating the visa lottery program, and ending chain migration. All those things are still the same. Stephen?
Nailed down
Jesus fucking Christ, Hal.
Respect to Steve Bannon, you said that the last time the president spoke with him was in the early part of December. Was that before or after the special election in Alabama?
I'd have to look back at the exact date and circle back.
How do I get a bunch of
The
stuff?
drafting of the statement the president issued today, it's rather lengthy. Did he write it in his own hand? Did he dictate it?
Look, these are the president's words. I think they're very clear, and there's not much to add beyond that.
And
Kevin?
one more thing, it's been reported that he was furious when these reports first came out about what Bannon was quoted as saying. Is that an accurate depiction?
I think furious, disgusted would probably certainly fit when you make such outrageous claims and completely false claims against the president, his administration, and his family.
Sarah, thanks. I wanted to ask you personally, and I know you speak on behalf of the president, on behalf of the American people. How surprised were you at what you read, these excerpts attributed to Mr. Bannon? Did that surprise you in any way, and if so, how?
Certainly surprising. I, for one, was somebody who very much believed that the president could and would win. Otherwise, I wouldn't have dedicated so much time to that. But not only that, I worked in the White House since the very first day, and a lot of the characterization that I saw that he was pushing out was the opposite of what I saw take place every day that I've been here.
Very quickly on North Korea, there's been some folks in town who've said, listen, it doesn't help. Despite the idea being we're going to be forceful, we're going to push back, some have said it doesn't help when the tweets come out the way they do. And yet we know that the president made clear, I am who I am, I'm going to tweet the way I want to tweet. Has there been any consideration that tweets like the one in North Korea actually don't advance the agenda, meaning working with other partners in the region?
I think what didn't help was the complacency and the silence of the previous administration. This is a president who leads through strength, and he's going to do that, and he's going to focus on everything that he can do in order to keep Americans safe, and he's not going to be pushed around by the leader of North Korea. Our policy with North Korea has not changed. We're fully committed to continuing to apply maximum pressure and working with all of our partners in the region, including South Korea, who we have a better relationship now than ever before. We're going to keep working with them and keep pushing forward, and hopefully North Korea will start making better decisions. Kristen?
It is said that people should question the mental fitness of Kim Jong-un. So then isn't it dangerous for the president to be taunting people on Twitter?
I don't think that it's taunting to stand up for the people of this country. I think what's dangerous is to ignore the continued threats. If the previous administration had done anything and dealt with North Korea, dealt with Iran, instead of sitting by and doing nothing, we wouldn't have to clean up their mess now. Mayor, I'm sorry I did call him.
Sarah, it's a taunting tweet to say that he has a larger group.
I think it's just a fact.
What does it, just one more, what does it say about the president's priorities that he unleashed a 4-paragraph statement about Steve Bannon in one tweet?
The president has issued a number of statements, as have I, as have the administration. Ambassador Haley, Secretary of State, Jim Mattis, Secretary of Defense, have all talked extensively about North Korea to try to limit it down to one tweet. It's just disingenuous.
And the president knows there is no actual one you're saying it is actually the reality.
The president's very well aware of how the process works and what the capacity of the United States is. And I can tell you that it's greater than that of North Korea.
Two foreign policy questions. One, yesterday you said there'd be more details on Pakistan in the next 24 to 48 hours. I'm seeing some reports that the administration plans to announce as soon as Wednesday or Thursday that it plans to cut off security assistance to Pakistan. Is that accurate?
We'll continue to keep you posted as those decisions are finalized.
And then regarding Jerusalem and Israel, the president tweeted last night that we have taken Jerusalem, the toughest part of the negotiation, off the table, but Israel for that would have to pay more. First, taking it off the table, when the president announced that Jerusalem was the capital of Israel, the administration policy was stated as that the borders were not being decided. This doesn't affect negotiations. This tweet seems to contradict that.
Yeah, I don't think so. It doesn't affect the negotiations. We still want to continue to have conversations and continue the peace process. We're still very much committed to that and hope we can continue to push forward.
The pay more thing?
I'm sorry?
He said that Israel would have had to pay more.
I'd have to check on the details of that. Jordan?
This book and back and forth over how much access Michael Wolff had to the White House. Will the White House reconsider its decision to block the release of Israel logs? Will you release Israel logs to the public?
I don't anticipate any changes to that policy at this point, but if it happens, we'll certainly make sure you guys are aware. John?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Two questions. First, during the campaign, the president said repeatedly entitlements were off the table and he would preserve Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Medicare Part D as they were. Now, with the passage of the tax reform legislation and the recent statements of House Speaker Paul Ryan that entitlements should be considered in the budget, has the president changed his position from the campaign?
The president hasn't changed his position at this point. Again, as conversations go on, if that does change, we'll let you know. Trey? Sorry.
Yeah. Is it safe to say Steve Bannon is off the list of social implications for the White House?
Probably so, Trey. Since those are controlled by the First Lady, I think her statement's pretty clear on her position as well.
Questions on Steve Bannon and one on North Korea. How would you describe Steve Bannon's role in the White House when he was serving in this administration?
I think the president addressed what he feels it was, and to me that's the most important voice in this process, and he's spoken very clearly on that front.
To follow up, is the president looking for an apology from Steve Bannon? What is he looking for in the future from Steve Bannon?
I don't think anything.
On North Korea. Discussing earlier the idea that Kim Jong-un would be the one who is mentally ill, is the president concerned that tweeting about nuclear war could cause someone like Kim Jong-un to act with military force?
Again, I've addressed this. I think the president is concerned about the continued threats that this individual has made towards the United States and others, and he's not going to allow him to continue doing that without saying something and standing up for the people of the country. Nita?
Former DHS secretaries have said that the deadline for DACA really is this month, that there's not enough time to put a new program in place by March if it's not done this month. Do you all agree with that? I mean, does that make you, feel like you have to get this done sooner? I know there's been some talk here about not worrying about it too hard.
We'd like to get something done, but again, we want to make sure that we have complete and responsible immigration reform. We're not just dealing with one piece of it. We've laid out what our priorities are and what it would take for us to make a deal on that. We look forward to having those conversations and getting that done.
This month,
Sorry?
Does it have to be done this month, as they're saying?
I don't know that it necessarily has to be done this month. Look, we'd like to make a deal on securing funding for the border wall, as well as ending chain migration, ending the visa lottery program, interior enforcement. So we'd like to do that right away. So if the Democrats are willing to sit down and make that deal, I think we'd be happy to get that done by the end of the month. Andrew?
I said I had a second question.
Sorry, okay, we'll do a quick one here.
A very quick one, which is I just don't understand the timing of something. Steve Bannon left in the summer, late summer. If the president says he lost his mind when he left, why did he continue to talk to him for so many months?
Look, the president continued to have conversations with him, often asked for by Mr. Bannon. The president spoke with him, but that doesn't mean that he can't hold that position. Andrew?
What do you base your comments about Kim Jong-un's mental ability? Is that based on a U.S. government assessment, a psychological assessment, or is that your opinion?
I'm not going to get into any further details on that front. Take one last question. Sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
In the past day or so,
Sorry, I'll come back. Andrew, go ahead.
The president enjoyed a slight bump in popularity when he was driving in Florida. I'm sure you saw it.
Tax cut and history done. I think they like the fact that they're going to see a lot of their paycheck. I think they like the fact that American companies are investing back in this country, not other ones. I think they like the fact that American companies are now paying out massive bonuses across the board every single day. I think that's what most Americans certainly were very happy about, particularly as they went into the holiday season and they had a little bit more money to consider spending as they celebrated Christmas with their family. Take one last question. Connor, go ahead.
The past day or so, we've seen President Trump attack the press, the Justice Department, and now his former ally, Steve Bannon. By attacking critics and key institutions in our democracy, isn't the president engaging in authoritarian behavior?
Not at all. The president's simply responding often to news of the day. I think if the president can't respond aggressively to an individual like the leader of North Korea that continues to threaten Americans, then that's a dangerous place that we don't want to go down.
The president called for critics to be fired from their jobs. That's not the president of North Korea.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the first part of your question.
We've seen both you and the president call for critics to be fired from their jobs.
I don't think it's necessarily critics. We're certainly happy for people that have different opinions, but there's a difference between different opinions and different facts, and people are entitled to an opinion, but they're not entitled to their own facts, and we have a big problem with people putting out misleading information. Those are very different things. Thanks so much, guys.
What the fuck did I just
The
hear?
president says after Bannon lost his White House job, he lost his mind. He accuses his former chief
Where even
strategist of
is
spending
this
his time in the
open?
White House leaking false information to
God.
make himself seem more important than he
Hmm.